My understanding is then that agenda item 5, which is the preliminary assessment of Sasol Gas Pty Ltd's multi-year transmission tariff application, will be withdrawn and dealt with via round robin. May we then proceed on that basis? By show of hands, members, if you adopt the agenda subject to that change. Thank you, Madam Pungose, Advocate Tole, and I take it that Madam Masetu, you also supporting based on your earlier comments. The agenda is then adopted as such. May we then proceed to the declaration of interest. I just implore you, members and management, to please ensure that you fill in the declaration of interest forms and return them by way of email to Mr. Dlamini, our secretariat. We'll then jump item 5 and go to item 6, which is the updated form for submitting application for maximum prices of gas under the new maximum price methodology. Over to you, Mr. Numalo and the team.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will introduce the submission. This is the submission on the updated form that is used for the submission of the maximum price application. Chairperson, this submission was necessitated by the fact that there are changes, or there is a new methodology that was approved by NERSA on 26 January 2023. And therefore, we need to update the form to ensure that it is aligned with the new methodology. Chair, this form also helps us as NERSA to make sure that there is adequacy in the information that is submitted by the licensees, and that we are able to conduct our adequacy and ensure compliance with the methodology. From the licensee's side, it helps them in that it clarifies the information that has to be submitted to NERSA in submitting the application for maximum price of gas. Chair, you will note that in the submission itself on the annexure, there are areas that are highlighted in red. Those are areas that indicates the changes in the updated form. And those areas, they particularly relate to the formula that has to be used in the calculation of the GE price, and also the formula that has to be used on the LNG maximum price application. Chair, we are asking the committee to approve that this form be published and that it be used for the purposes of the applications for maximum price of gas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Makoda, for the presentation from your side. I would then like to give members opportunity to ask questions, make comments, or provide any guidance. Over to you, members. By show of hands, please. Seems to be a straightforward submission in terms of the improvement from the previous one. I would then like to take this opportunity then to go to the recommendation from our side. The recommendation is for the Pipe Gas Subcommittee to approve the updated application form to be used to apply for maximum prices of gas under the new methodology attached here to as Annexure A, which is the application form for application of a maximum price of pipe gas. By show of hands, members, if you support this recommendation. Thank you, Advocate Tole. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thanks, Madam Maseti. I also support. This then dispenses of item 6. May we then go to item 7, which is a report on safety and regulation and the role of stakeholders. Over to you, Mr. Ngumalo and the team.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think with the background that you indicated earlier on, we can present the submission here and maybe just take inputs from members as to whether it should then proceed to also go to the RC. Chairperson, this report basically was a coordinated effort between the three divisions, pipe gas, electricity, as well as the petroleum pipelines division. Really, it's a sequel, or it emanated from a previous meeting where we submitted a report in March to the PGS regarding compliance inspections that were conducted. And the PGS noted certain concerns around safety of infrastructure and then proposed that we should basically have further consultation with other relevant stakeholders. We did proceed to have that consultation with those stakeholders, Chairperson. There was a workshop that was held in December together with relevant stakeholders, and those stakeholders were Eskom, Transnet, Pipelines, Source Gas. We also invited local government authorities and SALGA, but SALGA did not manage to attend. Chairperson, the feature or the take-home in terms of what came out of that workshop, in terms of deliberations, was really the commonality of the aspects and issues in terms of challenges that are being experienced by these role players in terms of the regulation of safety aspects of infrastructure. Eskom mentioned the same thing with regard to, for instance, third-party encroachments. Local government mentioned the same thing when we interacted with them, but also issues such as theft of product and as well as excavations that happen where accidentally pipelines or infrastructure is damaged. So those issues are common problems that are experienced by each and every one of these role players, Chairperson. Having identified the common issues that affect all these role players, we've then agreed during the workshop that there will be further coordination and collaboration and working together amongst these role players to deal with these issues. In fact, in that regard, if you look at the submission, we've also stated that the pipe gas division has already worked with one of the role players in terms of conducting compliance inspections. And I think it was quite a useful exercise in the sense that we did manage to utilize the skills of that role player in conducting these inspections, Chairperson. So the report is here ready for noting of the issues that came out during the deliberations at the workshops, but also to indicate that it's basically the beginning of a process where relationships are going to be put in place through MOUs, but further collaboration will then be held with the stakeholders with regard to dealing with these issues. As far as they relate to the safety, regulation of safety aspects of infrastructure. Chairperson, the report is here for noting, and I think we'll take further guidance with regard to whether we should also proceed then to table it to the RC as was proposed earlier. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Ngumalo. I would then like to give members an opportunity to comment on this submission, as well as reflect on its serving before REC. Over to members for any comments, questions, or guidance, please. Madam Pungose, your hand is noted. You may proceed, ma'am. Followed by Advocate Stone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just to thank the team for this initiative of engaging the various stakeholders. And it's good that the majority were invited did attend and made their submissions and presentations during the workshop. What I wanted to find out is, for instance, there's certain instances where there's damaged pipelines due to unauthorized excavations. I think it's on page 19 of 46. That's table number figure 6. What I don't get is that who does these excavations, because I thought, because this looks like a built-up area, you know, or rather an urban area, a city, or you know, and who does these excavations and for what reason? Because ordinarily in a municipality regulated area, before you do this, you need to get permission from the roads agency or roads department or from the actual municipality for them to allow you to work and give you timelines by when, and give you they'll give you diagrams and whatever to show you which pipelines run down there, so that you are careful when you're doing your excavations and don't damage the pipelines. So I'm curious to know who does this, if they are aware. And then with regard to encroachment on the pipelines, it's on page, it's figures, oh, this is figure 7 as well. Oh, that was figure 6. Figure 7 on page 20 of 46. I think it is critical for stakeholder engagement, and it's unfortunate that it's usually the informal settlements that encroach on the pipelines. And as we all know, that informal settlements just mushroom without any prior consultation or go ahead from municipalities or councillors. But I think it's very critical that there's ongoing stakeholder engagements and engagement with the community, because once there's an informal settlement, usually there will be a councillor for that particular area, And all right, I had one more comment, I think, on this particular agenda item. I'm just looking for it. Sorry. Oh yes, and then further on encroachments again. Or in the KZN area on page 27, I see that KZN contributes about 82% of the dwellings that are built to encroach upon the pipeline, compared to Gauteng, which is at 18%. Clearly, there is an issue. Is this in built-up areas in KZN, or it's the rural part of KZN? Because I can't imagine in a township or suburb setting to have about 82% encroaching upon the pipeline, because there's usually procedures on how you can extend your property or do any refurbishments and stuff like that. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Madam Pungose. Over to you.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes,
sorry to
continue.
I just want to find out from the team, how often will they be having these engagements, these workshops going forward? Thanks.
Thank you. Advocate Tole, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, mine was to just check with the team, or rather, let me start by saying I do support the noting. However, I thought that the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment should have been part of the stakeholders that should have been invited into this particular workshop, because some of the issues that are highlighted in the report do impact or have an impact on the environment. Is there a specific reason as to why this department was not a part of the workshop? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Advocate Tole, thank you. Madam Maseti, I remember your hand was up and then it went down for an opportunity. Madam Maseti? Okay. Let me then, before you respond, Mr. Numar and the team, just from my side, I'm looking at this covering all these 3 sectors, and I'm loath of that having this dealt with by the ELS as well as PPS, and then as it is being dealt with here at PGS, then it's only then that it goes forward. I think somehow if it was to be dealt with by REC, and then from there it goes on to ER. The way I look at it, the seriousness of the issues that we are dealing with, because these matters, when you look at them, they amount or tantamount to economic sabotage. But I think then it's also important to separate matters. I've noted where you are talking of authorized. You say that there are some of them are authorized, and my challenge with that, I think it's on page 20, where you're saying that I think it's 6.49D. I think we should just separate the issue of those that are actually unauthorized, but they are somehow they are municipality authorized. In other words, it's an unauthorized body giving authority. In other words, or a body that is giving authority without with proper information. Because it's important to separate that. Then there are issues that pertain to criminality, as well as natural disasters. If we look at that, so that we can have solutions that talk to the nature of the problem faced. For example, where municipalities are giving authority or authorizing people to work on this and do excavations, then it means there must be some education and awareness that goes to that space. And then when it comes to on page 2, we talk of mandated structures. The mandated structures that we had requested that they be consulted. From my side, I see them more of the other authorities, even including other regulators in the space, where we've got co-jurisdiction, which is then or complementary jurisdiction with them. We need to be able to work with them. I see the report. The challenge with the report is that it talks more on information that has come through via the licenses, and that issue of collaboration with others remains a challenge to me. So if you can look at that, and when I look at the report, considering the seriousness thereof, I think somehow we should be able to flag this to the highest authority. Firstly, because it's got a direct impact on the work that we do. If infrastructure breaks down, is vandalized, then it needs to be replaced. It means there are higher costs that are incurred, which then has got a tendency of increasing the tariff, which in return will then mean a higher cost of living for the citizens. And this is especially the criminal aspects of this are direct with waging of a direct war to our economy and our citizens. When it comes to 6.28, I'm also sure there in terms of transmission public safety, you're talking of the level of risk and trends on transmission infrastructure has on the public and the environment. I was just not so sure whether in terms of the public, is it not the other way around? That this is a challenge that because of the public that is not informed, or the public is posing a challenge also. It's not just be seen from one direction as the infrastructure impacting on them, other than them actually impacting on the infrastructure. So yeah, I will leave it at that for now. But I must say that this, in terms of collaboration, it's very exemplary and a good report, just from a point of collaboration. But it's important to link up with other authorities. I look, for example, in terms of petroleum pipelines. There's been a lot of stealing of products or attempts there too, and then there are task teams that have been established, and I think the input of those task teams is very important. As I said earlier on, I think this matter should be flagged up, really, even to go to the ER, in my view, because we should not be sitting quiet on these things. We need to flag this to other authorities, even if it means that they kind of take no action, but we should be seen to have done our part, because this really is damaging to the economy. I will leave it at that. Mr. Ngumalo, if you may just respond to all the questions that have been posed and reflect on the on the guidance that has been provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, members, for the guidance. I think just to quickly start with Mr. Mpunga's inputs and questions. On the issue of the damaged infrastructure, I think the question that she was asking there
Madam Mpungos.
Sorry, Madam Mpungos. I think she wanted to know who does these excavations. The excavations are done, Madam Mpungos, by consultants. Usually what would happen is that if there are excavations to be done, the licensee would sort of, they've got contracted service providers that they use to do the excavations. So what tends to happen is that sometimes these contractors do not actually check the way leave agreements that are there in place. And this way leave agreements actually do indicate areas where there's infrastructure underneath. So sometimes in the process of doing these excavations, they forget to check the agreements and to basically carefully then navigate around the infrastructure that is underground. And that's why there has been accidents in the past. But the contractors actually does the excavations in most of the instances because they are contracted by the licensees and service providers. On the issue of the encroachments, yes, I think you are quite correct, Ms. Mpungose. There will be ongoing community engagements because these encroachments are actually very, very important, especially on the part of the community, because the community sometimes would be encroaching on an area not knowing that there is infrastructure underneath within those areas. So part of what we're planning to do going forward is to actually engage these communities in further workshops and further consultations and this collaboration effort that will be put in place so that the communities are also taken on board and they will know exactly where the infrastructure is located. And then on the issue of the KZN situation, I think you wanted to know if it's in the build-up areas or townships. Yes, it's in the build-up areas because in the townships, there are structural requirements and basically bylaws that determine how things should be done. So those would normally be observed. So the problem that we've seen persisting is really more in the build-up areas as opposed to the townships. And how often are we going to conduct the workshops? The plan were to have it actually twice a year. And the reason for that, we actually would have wanted to have them much more frequently. But given the number of stakeholders that basically are involved in the collaboration, we wouldn't want to have workshops and have people not being able to attend. So in the deliberations that we had, we agreed on at least twice a year that is the frequency at which most of the stakeholders would be quite comfortable in terms of having these workshops. Then proceeding to Ms. Advocate Sistole's questions, I think it was just an input. The forestry, yes, I think in the workshops that are going to follow, Advocate Sistole, we will invite forestry. And I think, as you would have noted in the submission, that there are certain stakeholders that we had also invited that we considered relevant. Unfortunately, some of them were not able to attend, so there will be an opportunity for those that were not able to attend to actually be invited further onto the workshops that are going to come. And then, Mr. Mkhize, on to your inputs. And I think yours were really mainly enhancements. We will separate the authorized from unauthorized in the report, just to indicate that we're referring to unauthorized in terms of the issues that we are flagging in the submission, but also on the mandatory structures. I think the issue that you're raising there is that we must include other regulators as well. We will do so just to make sure that it's all comprehensive and we don't leave any other important and key stakeholders. And I think that will be done as part of the workshops that are going to be, held going forward with regard to this matter. And on flagging this thing, or this report, maybe just highlighting the issues, the challenges, and bringing them to the attention of the ER. We will do that in terms of the report that will also go to the ER, just showing this collaborative effort that has been in place or it has been initiated between the three divisions. But beyond that, I think we can also maybe just consider including this as part of our regulatory advocacy also to the department, just to indicate issues of these challenges and then make proposals appropriately as to how they can be dealt with going forward. I think that might also be important. And lastly, on the last issue that you raised, I think it's really more about the public not being informed, because it's when the public is not informed that they get to basically encroach or that they get to do certain things. So I think this links up with the earlier question regarding involving members of the community and involving the public. So we will do that going forward. But it's really more about the public not being informed. Chairperson, I think I've covered all the questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mr. Mumalo, for the responses. And I think that we need to then enhance the recommendation, because whilst we want the recommendation to note, I think we need to be able to take this matter forward. If you can do the follow-ups with other authorities, and then based on that, you will then have another an updated version of the report, which will then ultimately go to ER. Because I think that is, we need to communicate this to the highest level of authority in terms of ensuring that these matters are attended to. Maybe if you can just include that in the recommendation. With that, members, by show of hands, if you support the recommendations as provided for on page 42 of 46, plus that this enhancement that I've just alluded to, by show of hands. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thank you, Advocate Sithole. Madam Maseti. Okay, I also support with the majority. Then we'll thanks, Madam Maseti. Then we proceed on the score. This then closes item 7. Please just assist again, Mr. Numalo and the team with regard to the volume balance report for the month of April 2023 for Sasol Gas.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think just quickly on this, it's a normal volume balance report that we're presenting on a monthly basis. This one is for April. I think there's really not much to highlight in terms of the report itself, except just to maybe just indicate that the report shows the volumes that were transported, I think most importantly by some of the new role players that have just started transporting gas from Mozambique. Those being SSA, Social South Africa, as well as a company called Kwande. And I think the volumes are obviously confidential, but they're reflected in the report. I think it's a good thing that we've got gas volumes that are more flowing through the Romco pipeline from Mozambique to South Africa as opposed to what used to happen in the past. So it is an important development, and we are hoping that there will be more. But in terms of another highlight, what we've noted is that there's been a decline in the inventory between March and April. And I think we are going to basically contact also just to explain the reason for the decline in the inventory, because if you look at the inventory on page 7, you will see that in April, there was a slightly lower volume amount compared to what was there in March. And the unaccounted for gas is basically within the acceptable range or threshold of 1%. So there's nothing odd there. But Chairperson, those are the 3 things that I can highlight in as far as this report is concerned. And I think perhaps what we will provide in terms of feedback as soon as we obtain that from the licensee is the issue regarding the inventory as to what led to that slight decline in the volumes for April. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any comments, questions, or guidance? I take it there is none, as I don't see any hands. I'd just like to know, Mr. Numala, just on page 7, that table stretching from page 6, table 1, the volume balance calculation for April 2023. The variance there in terms of the gas losses at CPF, I just want to check there. Isn't it a bit higher than normal? And what does it mean?
I think what you mean is that it's in the negative. It's not really because what normally happens is that due to variations in conditions within the pipeline as the gas is being transported from Mozambique to South Africa, depending on those variations and the conditions of the pipeline prevailing at a particular time, that variance would basically sometimes be a minus. Sometimes it would be within, a slightly different range. But it does not mean that there is anything wrong with regard to the variance. And I think the threshold that is in place is the 1%. And as long as it's below that 1% threshold that has been put in place as a yardstick or as a determinant, the variance basically remains within acceptable levels, Chairperson. So it really depends.
No, Mr. Tumara, if I may just come in, because my understanding is that if you've got a variance, that variance is both ways. It's negative or positive. Did I understand it correctly? Because this is less than -1, in other words.
Yes. It's less than -1, but I think the threshold is actually that 1%. So if you look at the
Chairperson, can we get an engineer from gas technically to explain this, please, so that we don't waste each other's time?
Maybe Mr. Milatu, the engineer, I think you can just come in and clarify that minus, but please explain it within the 1% variance that we've got in place as a threshold.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think the EMS explained it clearly, Chairperson, that the variance there is not high. It is minus 2.75%, and has explained that it is due to variations in the pipeline. So negative variance explained technically will mean that you might be having more gas into the system than what you have, but in reality there is no more gas in the pipeline. But essentially it means variance is less than expected. Chair, I think the EMS explained. Thank you.
No, Mr. Mlatu, please, it's a simple thing from my side. If you can just help me. All I'm asking is, if you say you've got a variance of 1%, it means that it's 1% either way. If it's not either way, then you must be able to say it is plus 1% minus 3%. That's all I'm asking for here. I hope I'm clear. Because this thing can talk to the issue of calibration of meters or whatever, so I just want to get clarity here, so that at what point do we then say something must be done in terms of the technical astuteness of these measuring instruments?
Yes, Chair, you are right, Chair. Both ways it needs to be done. If the variance it's a negative, it means there's a problem in the system. It means maybe the meter has drifted, but a negative variance cannot be acceptable to the energy regulator, because it says there's a
Madam Sikenu, if you may please just
sorry.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Yes, Chair. A variance of more than 1% and a variance of a negative percentage means there is a problem in the system that needs to be sorted out. And looking at the Sasol variance for the past 5-6 months, there's been a problem in the system that Sasol has said they are tracing, and it has resulted in these negative variances. Yes, we accept that as being less than 1%, but it would mean there's a systemic problem in the system, that in the metering system, that needs to be looked at, Chair. I think you are right there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think members and colleagues, I think let's just in the recommendation, we over and above noting is that the team needs to follow up on the above threshold or outside of the threshold variance. If that is fine with you, colleagues, without really delaying this meeting. With that, by show of hands, if you support that recommendation to note the monthly gas volume balance report for April 2023, the amount of gas delivered to South Africa during April 2023, and the volume variance percentage, with the team having to look at the variance that is higher than what is the norm. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thank you, Advocate Tole. I also support the recommendation with that minor adjustment. Let's then move on to item 9, which also talks of the same issue with the balance report for May 2023 for Sasol Gas.
Chairperson, just
Yeah, you may proceed, Mr. Ngomar, please.
Thank you. Chairperson, this is the volume balance report for May, and I'm not going to repeat the highlights that I repeated in the previous report, because they also apply here in terms of the other entities that are actually transporting gas from Mozambique. And I think we do note as well the issue regarding the variance. If you look at this one again, it's still within that minus. So it's the follow-up will be done on both reports. But there's nothing to highlight on this one, Chairperson. I think maybe just to indicate that the inventory actually is looking slightly better than in the previous one on this one, because there was an increase as opposed to a decrease in the inventory between April and May. Chairperson, the volumes were within the range that we accept to be provided on a monthly basis going forward, so that we can arrive at a situation where the expected gas volumes for the year have been provided. I think those two things are the only thing that I can add onto the report, Chairperson. But we've noted the issue regarding the minus 3% variance. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ngumalo. Members, the comments of the previous one still apply here. And with that, I don't know if you've got any other matter to add. I take it that there is none. So in the same vein, we're noting we're requested to note the monthly gas volume balance report for May 2023, the amount of gas delivered to South Africa during May 2023, as well as the volume variance percentage, with the team going to investigate the variance that is above the threshold. With that, members, by show of hands, if you are happy to note. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thank you, Advocate Stole. I'm also happy to note. This then brings us to the close of the open meeting, noting that all the issues that we need to deal with in the public domain have been sufficiently addressed. I would like to thank everyone that has been following us through the various live streaming platforms that NERSA is using. We appreciate the interest of the members of the public as well as the industry players on the work of NERSA. Then the meeting, the open meeting stands adjourned. Mr. Mateja,